Hello, welcome to Care with Confidence. On behalf of Alpha Kappa Alpha, Sorority Incorporated, Omega Rho Omega Chapter, I bring you a warm welcome on behalf of our President, Cecilia Huff, and our Vice President, Sherry Bowman. I am Keisha Andrews, a member of Omega Rho Omega. Today's awesome program is brought to you on this special Community Impact Day, Caregivers Day. We are so excited you are joining us today. Please stay in contact with Omega Rho Omega by checking out our website at oroaka.com and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to know all about our upcoming events in the community. Thank you. Good evening. I am Keisha Andrews, and I will be talking with Andrea Robinson in celebration and recognition of caregivers. Ms. Andrea Robinson is the owner of My Fitness Matters, ERTY yoga instructor, and a certified diabetes prevention coach. Ms. Andrea Robinson's health coach certification earned her the opportunity to become a wellness coach with Chesterfield County's CFIT Employee Wellness Program. Her fitness studio is based in Chesterfield, Virginia, and her contact information is andrea@myfitnessmatters.net. Welcome. And I want to thank you for your time and sharing your journey and taking care of your mom into her transition of life. I would like you to share your story and information that you think may be useful for others. If you could begin with how you became a caregiver for your mom.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, Ms. Andrews, for having me this evening. It is certainly my pleasure to give you guys as much information as possible that will assist anyone else in not having to reach out and just kind of be in the blind, kind of be dark. And I also want to thank the AKAs. It's so exciting that you guys are taking the time out to kind of showcase and give us the chance to have our voices heard. It's often the caregivers that are forgotten. When it's, everyone asks, how is the person? How is the patient? Very few people ask about how are you doing? So we'll start back and we'll make sure that we get right to the information that's necessary for your listeners. My mother decided to move here by accident. She came to Richmond. She was going to have surgery, having just a simple spinal fusion, I guess you could say. She was a nurse. And she nursed when nurses were physically working.
Okay.
Therefore, after about 78 years, her back began to give out. And her whole thing was, you're going to come up and you're going to have a spinal fusion. We were excited about it because the doctor said, based on her physical condition, even though she was very old, she was older at that time, he said, you're still a good candidate for this surgery. It was a huge surgery, 8 hours long, 8 hours long. But prior to that, when we were doing all of we call it the pre-stuff, they're doing the pre-check, they're checking this, they're checking that, you're doing lab work. My mother has always had very, very bad RA, rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
On top of the rheumatoid arthritis, she was born with a physical disability. One of her hands, her fingers were not fully formed. So when she began nursing school at MCV back in 1951, they told her she would never be a nurse with that hand. Well, she was a nurse with that hand. She retired after 47 years. But the interesting thing is when you have those joints, the arthritis in the joints made the hand almost unusable. But she continued to drive because I gave her a car. So when they were checking her out, getting ready for surgery, they looked at her hands and they looked at the things that she was doing and they said, I see that your mom has an issue with her hands. Does she live alone? And I said, yes, and we're very proud of that. But the look they gave me was, you shouldn't be proud of this. She should not be living alone. She should not be living alone. So suffice it to say, during the surgery and after the surgery, we'd already decided she was going to move here.
Okay.
We moved a majority of her things. We got her here. She was only here for about 3 months. And her home that we were going to rent actually suffered a huge blast. They think it was some type of electrical fire.
Oh, wow.
And so she had a fire.
Mm.
So even if we had thought about her moving back, there was no chance of that. That was in 2012. Her first 2 or 3 years here, very independent. Catching the Chesterfield County van, which is, so one thing I like to stop at each juncture. If you have a senior parent who is fairly independent, Chesterfield County has a van. If you're at a certain income level, you can buy little tickets, just like you ride a bus. The van will pick you up and take you wherever you want to go.
Okay.
She would catch the van to the YMCA just to walk on the treadmill, and she'd catch the van home. Her level began to change a little bit more. She got a little bit slower. She never drove while she was here. She wanted to.
Okay.
And as we were looking for a home, she talked about how much she was going to walk and how much she was going to drive. It's a good thing we didn't look for a house based on that, because she never drove again. She never drove again.
Okay.
So her level began to change and her socialization changed. It got to the point where she was not inclined to want to visit where she grew up, where
Mhm.
she moved from.
Okay.
I'm running a business and I'm her daughter, I'm not her peer. And we saw the need for her to be with her peers. One of her cousins, actually a first cousin, Ophelia was her name, had picked her up a few times and carried her to the Friendship Cafe at her church. And it was 6 Mount Zion Church, I believe. She liked it.
Mhm.
But what she didn't like was riding with Ophelia. And not because there was anything wrong with that, but because she was dependent on when she wanted to go.
Right.
So if she was enjoying it, she had to wait for a ride. There's that independent level.
Mm-hmm.
So we found the Friendship Cafe right around the corner from our house. But for the first year, she had no way to get there.
Oh.
So we drove her
Mm-hmm.
and we picked her up, and I drove her and I picked her up. 4 hours. So we'll, at that juncture, not 4 hours, the program itself was only 4 hours. We drove her there, didn't take very long. That is another great resource for someone who has a parent at home,
Right.
who's not physically dependent, but who's socially dependent.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think a lot of people miss. Just because your mom or your dad doesn't need help with their shower or things like that, people on the outside assume life is easy because they don't. And I know you've had your mom, I know your mom has, the physical dependence is one thing. You
Right.
can have a parent who's socially dependent.
Absolutely.
They need, you're not trying to create their happiness,
Right.
but movies, theater, restaurant, church,
Right.
social bingo. So we chose the Friendship Cafe for mom simply for socialization. She never needed the physical watching.
Okay.
No one needed to watch her.
Okay. I wanted to also ask you about what type of documentation was needed in your process with regards to advanced directives, HIPAA authorization, POA. If you could just elaborate on that.
Okay. So this is, I guess I would say this is where I got lucky, because my mom being a nurse, she had watched what would happen when someone took a turn for the worse without having anyone in charge.
Right.
Before she was ever ill, before she ever had even the slightest amount of dementia, we had drawn up a POA which included a medical POA, making me her medical POA, and also the directive that she wanted. So in that instance, I was not given any opportunity to make a decision. I was simply in charge of making the decision she'd already chosen.
Okay.
And that was drawn up 7 years prior to her ever coming here. And it's not an extensive document. And for those who want to get them done, it doesn't have to be as wordy as hers was. Because she was a nurse, there were specific things. I don't want to be intubated. I don't want something in my nose. I don't want anything in my mouth. She was very specific, but it could simply say, I don't want to be kept alive through artificial means.
Okay.
You know, or if there's no brain activity, I don't want that.
Right.
So I encourage at the stage when the person is still cognate, very much functional, to get those documents done. A lawyer will do it, POA,
Okay.
only if you believe they're going to move in that direction, because some parents will push against that. There are things you can do outside of a POA.
Okay.
To make sure that finances go in the direction they should. The medical POA is probably the biggest thing, especially if you have siblings.
Right.
Somebody will still want mom or dad here no matter what. Mom or dad may not be here. In the instance of my mom, had she not had that, I probably would have had a sibling that maybe said, no, let's keep trying, let's keep doing this.
Right.
Even with what she had written, we still had a sibling who thought at some point we should have been still trying to give her stuff to drink and eat for those last 5 days. You know, are we just going to starve her? And you can tell when someone's ready to transition, they stop.
Absolutely.
They stop. So medical POA,
Yes.
a regular POA, only if there are a lot of resources.
Okay. Okay. And were there any home accommodations that were needed?
For us, the first things that we did when I bought the house, we installed a handrail in the bathroom.
Okay.
We installed another handrail in the shower. And then we had a home health person actually came in and showed what you would need when you come out of the shower, which is in an odd place, but as she got older, we saw that you're coming out the shower, they grab for the wall. So there's a grab bar on the outside that she also used to hold to step in. So we did those grab bars. I also encourage this, even if you're not 80 yet, maybe when you're just 60, maybe you have bad knees. The commode is taller.
Right.
You can order now the tallest commode you can find. Easier to stand, easier to go down. You know, if you're worried about the aesthetic look of your house, if you get a taller commode, you don't have to add anything to it. And then you have the hand holes built onto your wall around it. And you don't have a lot of stuff that you have to add in.
Okay.
You know, we never had a wheelchair ramp because she was never confined to a wheelchair.
Great. Great.
But she did use a walker. And we were close to the point of thinking about a ramp for a walker. But the thing with my mom is, because of her handicap, she would always need someone to help her with the walker anyway.
Oh, okay.
So instead, we bought 2 walkers because she could walk steps. So we had a walker at the bottom of the steps and a walker at the top.
Nice. Nice.
She would take her walker to the door, walk down the steps, get her other walker, and walk to the van. So if you have someone that's stuck in what I call the donut hole, they make a little bit too much money for Medicaid, but they're not wealthy. And you look at the cost of that ramp, and you look at whether you want that ramp to be there, unfortunately, when the parent passes away, and how it looks on the house. If they can walk stairs, get multiple walkers. That's something we chose to do.
Okay.
As far as the house, we created an apartment on the first floor out of a room that was a family room. Love seat, end tables, TV,
Right.
bed,
Everything.
nightstand, 400 square feet.
It
400 square
worked.
feet.
It worked.
Yes, yes.
So as you speak a little about finances, how much of a major part did it play in your taking care of your mom with regards to financial obligations? Was it all on you, or were you able to have her be financially independent, but you still be her caregiver?
For mom, she was never going to be financially independent. When she lived away from here, I made sure that she had what she needed. She retired at a time where nurses, she probably made the most money of her life the last 5 years before she retired. And so her Social Security was limited, her retirement was limited, and I made sure that she had extra when she lived away. So when she came here, it was whatever you need, I'm going to make sure I take care of that. I think the biggest expense, and this was why I was so excited when you reached out to me, the biggest expense was health insurance, because no one had done what I'm hoping I'm doing for someone. No one had sat down and said, see if your mother qualifies for Medicaid. Because up until recently, the Medicaid laws looked at your household.
Absolutely.
Now they take that one person and that person is their house. So it was, she'd been here 5 years before she qualified for Medicaid. So for the first 5 years, I paid her Anthem secondary. You know, you have your Medicare Part B, which is what they call it.
Okay.
For the first 5 years, her Medicare Part B was about $400. And I paid that.
Okay.
No one told me she would have, well, I think the law changed around President Obama's second term. So now I encourage everyone, get them screened, see where they are. They can own a home. They can own a car. Yes, you don't have, that's a myth. You can own a home, you can own a car. How do I know? Because I put my mother's name on this house just in case something happened to me.
Wow, that's good information. I wasn't aware of that as well.
Yeah. They can own a home, they can own a car.
Okay.
And it does not change that. Now, where we got into trouble is she also owns land. So in order to qualify for a different program that we found, the land had to go up for sale.
Oh.
And then once you put it up for sale, they remove it from your resources and you can qualify.
Oh, okay.
And that is when she transitioned to the phase where she needed help. She needed not a sitter, but she needed someone to help her with her bath.
Okay.
Someone to help her dress, that type of thing.
Okay. Okay. And for some, this may be a new process. And again, you have given us already a bunch of different resources, but what other resources that someone may not think about that are out there?
I would start one place. I would start with, it's a company in Richmond. It's called Senior Connections. If you go to Senior Connections online, they have a cornucopia of resources. They will have links to social services. They will have links to Medicaid, Medicare information. They have online screening tools. They're also the parent nonprofit of Friendship Cafe, if your parent just needs socialization. They also are a resource if you have a parent at home, that parent could potentially qualify to, you think your parent almost needs the nursing home. There is a program that keeps our parents in our home. That same program, that same Medicaid that'll pay for them to go to the nursing home can pay for them to stay home.
So they get all the same benefits, but at home.
At home, at home. The reimbursement, you know, a nursing home takes $5,000 of Medicaid money. But the easiest part with that, you call your local social services, you know, Chesterfield County, Richmond City, Henrico County. They send a nurse. She comes to your house. She screens your parent and lets you know if that parent is nursing home level.
Mm.
And if they are, you can say, they'll say, are you looking for a nursing home? And if you say no, they qualify you for a program that will allow a family member or an agency to come in and be paid to take care of your parent.
So if I'm understanding, you said a family member?
Yes,
Oh, wow. Can come
yes,
in and be paid to take
yes,
care
yes.
of-
The last year and a half, and it doesn't matter what the family member's income is. My income is not low. And they came in and they tell you based on what that person can do, how many hours they qualify for. And they will pay the family member so they can keep their parent at home.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know about the program.
No, no, not at all.
It's
That's
called
information.
Consumer Directed Care.
Consumer directed care. Okay.
Yes,
Got it. Okay.
yes. They
Okay.
pay the family member just like they would pay someone coming from a nursing agency.
Okay. That's good information.
Mhm.
And before we conclude, I just want to know, how did you care for yourself while caring for your mom?
Intentionally. You can't assume it's going to happen. And one of the biggest things, especially for African American women, you cannot assume someone's going to step in and take the burden away from you. So when I say intentionally, really what I mean is planning when I'm going to be away. And my mom was on board with that. She would say, you need a break. Or we would joke and say, we need a break from each other. I would plan long weekends. This is what I'm going to do this weekend. I would have to leave the home because, you're going to have some sorors who are going to be shaking their head going, I agree. None of my siblings offered to take her out of the house. In the 8 years she was here, she probably spent 3 weeks away from here, total.
Wow.
Total. And I have other siblings, and I have other female siblings. So I had to be intentional about when I would leave. And for me, I was very lucky in that my brother moved here from another state. So I could say, I'm going to do a long weekend. And because she needed minimal care, he could do that. And it was more earlier on as she changed, we would even call in a cousin. So we've called in one of your husband's aunts on more than one occasion, who stayed here for 4 days because I needed that break. So very intentional. It does help to have a family circle.
Yes.
So you have to make sure you cultivate those connections while your parent is still doing well, because you're going to need them.
Right. Correct.
Don't burn the bridges.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Don't burn the bridges.
Yes.
So yes, very intentional. And you have to make sure if you burn out, whoever you're taking for is going to realize that, and it's going to show in your care. I've seen people burned out trying to take care of their parent, and you see it.
Yes. Yes.
You see it.
Well, again, I would like to thank you for your time. You have provided awareness and information as we celebrate caregivers. So I appreciate you.
I thank you so much for having me. If whatever I've provided helps someone on this journey, it is a tough journey, but I can tell you this, my mother has transitioned, but it is very rewarding. I would not have traded 1 day of that for anything else.
Thank you. We appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome.
Okay. Have a great evening.
You also. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.